Hey everyone, before we get into the show, I wanted to go through all of our sponsors with you. First is 4patriots.com. Lots and lots of deals. I'm on their deal page right now. Right, you can get some crazy stuff right now. You get free shipping on all orders $97 or above. You buy three, get one free on specialty food kits. And also 20% off on custom go bags. So buy four plus and save. They have Mother's Day specials. They even have, like with the bestsellers, pretty amazing deals that they have here, and the prices are unbeatable. You look at these prices for the amount of food that you get, and that is actually less than you would spend at the grocery store. So check out Four Patriots. They're one of our best sponsors, and they've always got crazy deals going on. If you use the link in the description, you will get another discount on top of what they're already offering. All right. Our next sponsor is EMP Shield, and they actually have a Liberty sale going on right now. You get up to 25% off, and if you click on my link in the description to go here, you get 50% off. So you also get to save on these deals over here on top of that. So if you buy one EMP shield, you get an extra $20 off plus the 50%. You buy three EMP shields, you get $120 off plus the 50%. You buy four EMP shields, you can save an extra 200 plus 50 for each additional EMP shield you purchase. These EMP shields are not just for an electromagnetic pulse, but we always have thunder and lightning storms, so want to protect all of your vehicles, your home, your appliances. Check out EMP Shield today. All right, hello everybody. I don't think my Rumble stream started. That's twice in a row. I don't know if it's an issue with my software that I'm using or what. But anyway, I am going to try to monitor, at least on the YouTube side. Want to make sure that everybody can hear me before I get carried away here. Just shoot me a message up in chat on YouTube if you can hear me okay. And I'm just going to bring the monitor up. Want to make sure that everybody can hear me before I get carried. I'm muted though. All right. Don't know if anybody can hear me yet or not, so I don't hear anything coming through the audio on the other side. Don't know if anybody can hear me yet or not, so I might have to go back to my headset. All right, give me 1 minute. I'm going to just fix this on the fly. I don't hear anything coming through the audio on the other side. Don't know if anybody can hear me yet or not, so I might have to go back to my headset. All right, give me 1 minute. I'm going to just fix this on the fly. I don't hear anything coming through the audio on the other side. Don't know if anybody can hear me yet or not, so I might have to go back to my headset. All right, give me 1 minute. I'm going. Okay, so it sounds like I have sound. All right, so before I get into the main part of the show tonight, just want to let everybody know it's been a long day for me. I have been up since I think right about 3 o'clock this morning. I have friends and family that actually live in Ukraine, and I'm getting messages from them that they were getting droned and missiles last night, close enough to blow out a window in their house. And yeah, so it hasn't been real good. But what I want to talk about, and the reason that I wanted to talk about this tonight is because it does kind of go hand in hand with what we're going to be covering on this show in the weeks coming up. Basically about lifting the veil, and that includes the fake news and the things that are being hidden out there. And in this case, this war between Russia and Ukraine, what it's about. And I know I'm talking with my friends and family in Ukraine, and number one, they think Zelensky's a tyrant and a Nazi. They're not real happy with what Putin's doing and how he's handling things over there, especially with the killing of all these innocent people um, in these indiscriminate shellings and drone strikes. Some things that I was looking up in the newspapers over there, and I found some interesting things. So in one, and I'll bring these up in a minute, but in one, it's a Russian publication, and they actually admit to um, sending drones and certain types of missiles that they have, cruise missiles or whatever they are, um, and targeting military infrastructure, and they admit that. On the same token, some of the Ukrainian newspapers, like one that I read an article yesterday, right after I got notification of the first or the beginning parts of the attacks in the part that I'm concerned about. I'm actually concerned about all of Ukraine, but my family's in Poltava Oblast. Um, but they were getting hit pretty hard initially last night for a little while, and then again today, and um, I'm still getting reports that they hear these drones flying around. It's almost like they're looking for targets. I don't know, but um, I had some questions about that. But before I bring up the questions, the Ukrainian news is asking people not to take pictures and publish photos of any of the scenes of destruction, not because they might catch a body or something like that. It's like they're trying to hide the destruction and or if there might be something left over from what did the destruction. So a week ago, when Kiev got hit, they got hit by a North Korean cruise missile. The interesting thing about this was that the parts that they found of this cruise missile were pretty good sized, and they still had readable, legible markings that showed that they were from North Korea, serial numbers and markings that they were North Korean. And so this week they're asking not to put these photos out. So I'm beginning to wonder if the Nazi media over there is trying to cover something up. So my question is what does Vladimir Putin have to gain by sending missiles and drone strikes into civilian areas? So last night and today in Poltava, they hit the city council building. Now, these are just council members for the city. Nobody was in the building because this attack happened at night. They hit the hospital. Now, this is the hospital that my fiance goes to for her. She's supposed to be going there. She was supposed to be starting to go there today for rehab. She just had open heart surgery on the 30th of May. So she's going to be staying in Lviv for another couple of days, just so she's not in the areas of the strikes. And we're working on getting the rest of the family to Lviv. So far, there has been no war activity going on there, so I think they'll be relatively safe for a while. So again, I'm talking with my fiance's mother, and she was sending me pictures. Now, this is a little over a month ago now, but pictures from the attacks in Donetsk. And Donetsk is level. It's level. These um, apartment tenements. They basically look like big dormitory buildings, but they're basically apartments. You know, that's where the people are living. And these buildings are pretty much rubble. Um, Single family homes leveled. Again, I ask the question, what does Putin have to gain by dropping bombs and shooting cruise missiles into civilian domiciles and civilian areas? And I think the month of April was the biggest civilian casualty month of the whole 1170 something, 1180 days of the war. It was the highest casualty count of civilians. And I heard President Trump talking about, why he wants the war to stop, because he's talking about how Ukraine and Russia, they've both lost like 1.7 or 1.8 million troops each. But I don't remember. I know there was mention made of civilians, and in my opinion, the civilians are more important to be mentioned because the people that are in the military, they signed up for that. They know that they could eventually go fight, even though this war is for the wrong reasons, which is, I'll get into that. And that's the important part about how some of this is going to tie into things that we're going to be talking in the future. But most of the Ukrainian people understand that this war is about money. Basically, for Zelensky to get money from the United States. Now, he got a ton of money from Joe Biden. Trump's going to make him pay it back. Apparently, the mineral rights thing is signed. That's a done deal. But It's, in my opinion, it's more than money. Well, it's probably still money, but there's a lot more involved with this. Um, I I told my fiance and my soon-to-be mother-in-law that I can't talk to them on Telegram about this because it's probably not a safe place to talk. I think the safest is face to face, like here in my house. But um, March 8th, 2024 or 2025, um, Victoria Nuland was in front of Congress being grilled by Marco Rubio. And it pretty much came out that the reason that we were wanting to send more money to help Ukraine's military is because our underground biolabs needed protection. Underground biolabs. Okay, so that automatically makes you start thinking, if you're in the know about things, that, okay, the deep state's involved, and they're like, okay, who's the deep state? Rogue CIA. Um, Nazi officials from the Ukrainian government most definitely are involved. Um, a lot of there are a lot of our congressmen, congresswomen, senators, people in politics that and lobbyists that are involved to the point where they push for this because their pockets are getting lined too. So that's where the money part of it comes in. But what's worse is that some of the things that are going on, as we all know, in these biolabs are it involves human trafficking. People are abducted, people are taken to these labs, probably experimented on. The ones that aren't taken out into sex trafficking or um, into servitude as slave labor. Um, so experimenting on these people. And then if you want to get more into the woo-woo, which we're going to do that a lot here, into the woo-woo, because we're finding out that the woo-woo is actually pretty freaking real. Um, so here in the United States, it's probably still done in the DUMBs, deep underground military bases, if you're not familiar. Gene splicing, playing around with genomes, uh, chimeras, cloning, all of this stuff has been prohibited in the United States. So what better places to do these things, as in, like, in the past, North Korea, um, it was pretty easy to do it there. They were pretty much locked down, and they were being run since after the Korean War by our very own CIA, rogue rogue sections of our CIA. That also came out back pre 2020, um, just before and shortly after Trump got into office. That's why the whole thing with clearing out the CIA, he wanted to finish up what John F. Kennedy was going to do with the CIA. So this stuff was going on there, and if we have had admitted biolabs underground in some of these locations there, then who's to say that this stuff wasn't going on there? It just kind of makes you, leapfrog the lily pad, and you just follow breadcrumbs. So I'm not saying that that's the case, but I'm saying it's very probable. I'll leave that up to you to decide, and if you have more information on that, feel free to shoot me an email. I'll be happy to read your email online, and or if you like, if you look in the description, we've got um, a link in there that you can actually join me on the stream if you want. So um, I just want to look and see if anybody has even yet. I don't see anybody there yet. So um, let me go ahead and show you what I have here on the Ukraine stuff. And so I'm going to change over to another screen. I got to do this slowly because I set this stuff up. I don't have it all memorized yet. So I'll play the Ukraine Biolab stuff here so you guys can see that first. It's a couple of minutes long, so just kind of relax and listen. Here we go.
Yeah, appreciate that. Senator Rubio.
Secretary Newland, I agree with all of the assessments that have been made about Vladimir Putin, that he seeks, to establish great power parity with the United States and therefore tries to show force and power around the world. I also think he's driven to some extent, maybe a great extent, by the ego and the drive to bring Ukraine and to at least the Russian sphere of influence, if not into the Russian Federation, as and cement his legacy as the uniter of a greater Russia. I think there's a third factor here that I'm curious whether you agree with, and that is that he also thinks that the West, and I by no means am a fan of Vladimir Putin, and I'm confident that they're not fans of mine, but they're thinking, as irrational as we may think it is, that we want to turn Ukraine, the West in general, the U.S. in specific, into a base of operation to threaten their security and or to undermine, their internal cohesion and the like. And therefore, he's using this as an opportunity to try to impose neutrality, at a minimum, impose neutrality on Ukraine. And if that is, in fact, at least the primary motivator in the short term of this threat of military action, then I would imagine that he's already been publicly messaging what his asks are. The first is that we would pull back NATO forces from anywhere near their western border. The second is to completely rule out the admission, probably not just of Ukraine, but Georgia as a member of NATO. And the third is to stop arming Ukraine. Of those three conditions that he's publicly messaged already, would the United States agree to any of those three?
All of those would be unacceptable.
Let me ask you about another trend that I think is disturbing if you sort of follow it. On the one hand, we see a growing amount of what appears to be, including here in our own, I've seen some here domestically too, but this messaging that, Zelensky is a U.S. and Western puppet, he's ineffective, he's corrupt, and that he's not acting in the best interest of the Ukrainian people. So that disinformation, one of the things we're seeing in real time is what hybrid warfare looks like to prepare the groundwork. At the same time, sadly, as we see a confederation of oligarchs, opposition politicians, former government officials, all with their own agendas looking to undermine Zelensky. At the same time as some of this is happening, I imagine some of them perhaps in coordination with the Kremlin, others just doing it because they want to be president instead. What options do we have on both fronts to deal with this sort of disinformation, hybrid warfare campaign that they're undertaking to prepare the ground for all of it, and in particular on addressing these oligarchs, former officials, and others who are clearly understand that what they are doing would aid Russian efforts and Putin's efforts, and nonetheless continue because of personal ambition, others, I imagine, because of financial gain to move along this track. So what options do we have on those two things?
So among the many counsels that we're giving to Ukrainians and that President Zelensky is also now giving to his country is that at this moment of challenge for Ukraine, unity among patriots, unity among Ukrainians who believe in the sovereignty and territorial independence of their country is absolutely essential, and that none of them should fall into these traps that the Kremlin is setting to divide them or pit them against each other. You know that democracy is a relatively new sport in Ukraine. They occasionally play it rough, as others do, but now is absolutely a moment for unity, and particularly with regard to disinformation efforts to blame the other guy for what you yourself are doing. We have encouraged the Ukrainians to apply that best adage, which is that sunlight is the best disinfectant, and to be very vigilant about exposing Russian disinformation activities and payments and little gray men and little green men who are trying to infect politics, and that is something that they must do in this moment.
Thank you. Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you.
don't have sound. Could you? I don't know. I probably had my sound off. Um, so you guys saw all the pictures that I put up. They were the first picture was, or the first video was a drone or a UAV or attacked a building in the just outside the city limits, but in between the city and the village. And my mother-in-law took that video. The second one was the hospital that my fiance goes to, and the last one was the drone, a fragment of a drone or a UAV. I think it was a drone that was on their driveway. So you guys saw all the pictures, but sorry I forgot to just turn my mic back on when I switched back over. Have to gain by attacking civilian areas. Now, everything that was hit in Peltova last night and through the day today was all civilian. There was not one single military infrastructure that was hit there. Russia did say that they sent some missiles into Peltova, and they said it was for military installation or military infrastructure. According to my fiance and my mother-in-law, there is no military infrastructure in those areas where they took the hits in the city of Peltova, or in the city major, I guess you want to call it. In the village where they took at least 3 to 4. I think I was saying that on the the recorded video call that my soon-to-be brother-in-law and his friend made. I heard the air raid sirens. They were talking. It was mostly like, "Oh wow," but not a lot of conversation. But I don't understand Russian, so whatever they said, I don't know. But they were scared. Um, and then there were 3 distinct explosions. You could actually hear the streak of the drone fly over the house, and then there were 3 explosions. One of those explosions landed within 30 meters, which is about 95 feet from the house where my soon-to-be family members are living, and the explosion had enough force to blow out the kitchen window and send glass shards through the kitchen. Um, that, as far as she knows, that was the only damage, was just the um, broken glass. So again, what what does Russia have to gain by hitting civilian areas? Nothing. What does Ukraine and the Nazi part of that army, their brown coats or whatever they're called, what do they have to gain? They have everything to gain if they can blame it on Russia and make Russia look like the bad guy. And this is exactly what my soon-to-be mother-in-law was telling me, is that she thinks a lot of this, the attacks and a lot of the stuff that's happening with the civilian areas, is that it's actually Zelensky's shock troops that are out there doing it. The other thing that I find interesting, up until just the other day, Zelensky was staying at his house in Florida and left so he could go to Ankara, Turkey, to go have peace talks with Putin. Putin's not going to go. I think he's going to send some low-level guys, and depending on who they are, Zelensky may not even do the peace talks. So Trump has already backed out from the peace talks. He's had enough. Um, he doesn't show his cards, so they probably know something that I don't know. But I think there's something going on. We'll probably find out soon. But unfortunately, for my soon-to-be family members, we're working real hard to get them out of the war zone, at least over to Lviv for right now, which is on the border with Poland, and then hopefully we can get them into Poland and then on a flight to here, and then that'll be that. So, all right. I just wanted to talk about that because, again, we're trying to lift the veil. We're trying to find out why these little wars are going on, especially this one. And like I said, I believe that it has to do with not just the biolabs, but I think it has to do with human trafficking. I think it has to do a lot with the big pharma and what big pharma would be involved in there that they can't do here in the States is doing testing on certain types of medications or viruses or whatever they're playing with. They'll test it on some of these people that they've abducted and brought in. That's just my mind's where my mind's going with it because I've seen some things that have come out already, not only with this but with North Korea and with other places, and they're not good. And I'm the one that's saying it out open because I don't care. I'll say it because it's the truth. But there's a lot of people that allude to it and won't say it on the air. So, if YouTube wants to crash me down for this, then I'll just stream specifically to Rumble. I don't care. But I just want to get the truth out. All right. So let's get to the in your face stuff. All right. About rewritten timelines. Again, we're talking about lifting the veil. Rewritten timelines. That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about past civilizations and the architecture. Okay, for years, everybody's been talking about who built the pyramids, who built the pyramids. And then a few weeks ago, we find out that there's more underneath the pyramids than anybody knew until they ran this radar stuff. So that's a big thing, and that's kind of more on lifting that veil just a little bit more, and helps us with what we're doing here. So we look at a lot of, and I didn't get really fancy. What I did do, I think I've got um, some photographs here in a slideshow that we'll talk about them as they come up. Okay, so here is an older building that has been painted over and had a lot of modifications to like windows and doors and things like that. One of the things that's like in your face, we walk by these buildings every single day. And if you live in the big city, if you live in New York, if you live in San Francisco, if you live in LA, San Diego has a lot of old world buildings. But when you walk by these buildings, if you look at this picture, okay, you got like that kind of teal green up top, and then a door, and then like some white brick. Now that white brick was at ground level. So more recently, it looks like some of the more of this building was cleaned out in the front to expose what was already there before and had been covered up. A lot of people believe that there was a mud flood, and which I don't particularly think it was like a mud flood. I am kind of now leaning towards quite possibly that the flood of the Bible happened sooner than what a lot of people are saying happened in the Bible in biblical times. Those times might be closer. And I'll tell you why as we get going. Real quick, I do want to give a shout out to my lunch break. Um, this guy started coming out with stuff, and his work is phenomenal. Early on, I was like, "Come on, say it, say it, say it," but he didn't say it. But now he's saying it. He's actually saying it, and um, now it's like we got to get this out so people can see what's actually going on and that our history has been hidden from us for a long time. Okay, so some of these buildings I'm going to show you. This one here is under restoration. Usually when they have scaffolding up and they're doing stuff like this, they're actually destroying certain things that people see. On a couple of these pictures, we might get close enough in, or I can actually find some. These things are easy to find on the internet. Just super, super easy. I just did some basic searches and boom, they're there. But when you see scaffolding up in front of these, build a building like this in our country. Never, 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 never. There's never been a building like this built in Europe. in within that time frame, 1800s to now. Okay, and every single one of these buildings, when you look on Wikipedia, they were founded 1800s or much further back, like some of them even to the 700s. And how did they build that without power tools, without cranes? So let's keep going. Here's my next picture. All right, so here we got a building, and I believe this is an older building in California, probably San Francisco area, but it's a much older photograph. And you see that there's this building that's there, and there are 4 stories that are below ground. Okay, we're gonna be talking about a lot of this stuff. Um, and I think what I want to do for those of you that are actually going to listen to the show all the way from beginning to end, I want to say now, if you go to realtube.stream, that is my personal website. It's kind of like a mini YouTube, but there is a video. You don't even have to log into the site. But I do have an SSL issue right now, and if you get that issue with the SSL saying that the SSL is expired or doesn't exist or whatever, if you're using Chrome, just scroll down, click on Advanced, and just say, let me in anyway. I don't have any tracking software. I don't do any of that. The site is totally 100% free. You don't have to have an account to see everything there, but if you want to comment on the videos and any articles, then would like you to have an account. So that way, at least, and the comment software needs you to have an account to do it. So you can use an anonymous name too. And we also have a forum there, which you have to have that account to use as well. So anyway, what I was getting at is go there, and right up on the main page, I don't think I have it in here. I think I forgot to grab it. But right on the main page, right on the front page when you go in, there's a video, black background. It's got a yellow 1-7, and it says Lost History of the Flat Earth. Now I'm not trying to push flat Earth, but this is all 7 videos that were put together into one. They were all different lengths, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour and a half, hour 45. Everything was just put together. It's 5 hours and 15 minutes. You don't have to watch it all at once, but I guarantee you, when you watch this video, you're gonna go like, wow, because you're gonna say, your cognitive dissonance is gonna say, ah, no way. But when he shows you some of this stuff and goes into explaining about it, you're gonna go like, well, I'll be damned. This guy's spot on. But you got to watch it. That's your homework, okay? Because as we start getting the group coming back in and we start talking more in chat and I get people on, I do have a link in the description just as a reminder. If you want to come on and have discussion with me, you can click on that link. It'll bring you into the green room. I can talk to you a bit in there, and then I can bring you in, and boom, if you want to be on camera, you can. If you want to put your name in or an anonymous name, that's up to you. I don't care. But you do have to be able to have your voice, okay? But if you don't want your camera, you can just tell it to put in an avatar for you or something. But you can come on and we can talk about it, or you can send me an email to support@irlmediahq.com, and in your subject, just tell me what you want to talk about or what your email is about, and I'll read it online. If there's anything that you don't want me to know that's private about you, don't put it in the email because I'm gonna read it exactly as you write it. Okay, next photo. All right, so another one of these big, giant, beautiful buildings. Okay, we even this is a little bit less fancy than the previous that I showed you, but we still aren't building anything like this. And if you look this building up in Wikipedia, it says this building was built in a year, and they always say it was founded. Okay, I think they need to take the ed off because I think they found these buildings after the deluge. okay, or the flood. All right, moving on. Here's another way that they're covering it up. They're taking a building rather than tearing it down because these buildings are built to last forever. What they're doing is they're just building up and around it. And you can see how our work today doesn't last as long as their work did. So whoever built these buildings, their technology was phenomenal. All right. Now, this made me think, did we really have that whole thing with the East and the West with the Transcontinental Railroad where they were starting from the East Coast and starting from the West Coast and they're coming together to see who can get to the middle point first? I don't think they were building tracks. They might have been replacing some. I think they were digging them out. And I found a number of photographs like this where they're digging the tracks out. This is one that's going through a city. There's another one that's going right up to a building. So I think they had a railway system back then, and that's what they used back then. Um, and again, if you go to my lunch break, his videos average 20 to 30 minutes long. He's got a couple that are an hour or so, but the information that he puts out there, and he puts a lot more of the photographs, and he goes deep into the wiki and on the information that's actually out there. He believes that AI wrote all the Wikipedias for every single one of these buildings. And he also believes that AI existed beforehand and software similar to like Photoshop. Because as we go later in the show, there's going to be photographs that I'm going to show you. These are actual photos, not drawings, where the back from the sky, you can see that stuff was cut out. And from some of the shapes that were taken out, we're thinking that it might have been like a dirigible, kind of like, like the Goodyear blimp or the Hindenburg that blew up. And again, the Hindenburg is another conspiracy. They think that that was done on purpose just so that they couldn't have that type of transportation anymore. We'll get into all this later on, but tonight is just kind of like to get a taste of the things that we're going to talk about. All right, again, talking about street level, what you see on the buildings, and a lot of these buildings actually go much deeper, the original buildings and how they were built. And all of this here was covered by a mudslide or mud, which could have been pulled in when this huge deluge came through and buried everything. Um, I really would like to. There's a guy. He's got a YouTube channel called Free the Rabbits. He's very knowledgeable about biblical things. He gets into the Hebrew stuff and with the King James and with other versions of the Bible and the non-canonical books like Enoch, the Book of Enoch. But he has able to dig deep enough to find also about these ancient civilizations, and I would really like to talk with him a little bit more about I just to have him on and kind of share some of this with you guys. Or you can just go to his channel on YouTube called Free the Rabbits. All right. So here's some more of these. The columns. The columns are always a giveaway. But then if you look at where the windows are, they're below the street level. So we know that there are a lot more floors underneath this building that were there originally. Another thing that we're finding out with all these old world buildings, every single one of them is connected to each other by a tunnel system underground, under all these buildings. 2 to 3 levels, 4 levels down, and there are tunnel systems. That's why even like the Vatican and all these cathedrals, they have catacombs down below, and you've seen the pictures of the catacombs with all the skulls and the bones and everything all supposedly being decorative. We'll get into some of that too and what that possibly might be. All right, here's another one. Okay, the one thing about this, besides the intricate artwork, the big circle in the middle, that again comes from, those are for sound waves and frequency. In that video on the YouTube.stream that I asked you to, he talks very in depth about the frequency stuff and how there are healing frequencies, And these places were places of healing. And then they were taken over and made into banks. Some of them became churches, um, and insurance buildings and things like that. But the one thing that struck me the most with this building was some of the renovation that was done to it. If you look at the archways by the doors, you have where the actual wooden doors are. The doors are replacement doors, and they filled in the original doors went up much higher. And we'll see that a little bit more in some of these other buildings. So, them giants, but maybe they were just a taller people. I don't know. But there is some speculation too, where in some of these burial places, and we'll get into some of those later, where they had 6 fingers and 6 toes. So in that case, they would have been most likely Nephilim. All right, and here we have the Statue of Liberty on an old world building. And if you look at the old world building, what that is below, that is a star fort. And you will find, and that's another thing we're going to talk about is star forts. They're all over the world, and what they were there for. They weren't always just to be for protection for war, but in the configuration of some of these, they were also waterways, and water is very important with frequency and healing. And again, going back to that video that the parts 1 through 7, history of the lost history of the flat Earth. If you can watch that, I advise you. It's homework for everybody. All right, here's another one. You see it's kind of whitewashed. So the older part of the building that was always above ground, it always has like a patina to it because of the weather, being out in the weather, the sun, the wind, the rain, and there's some slight erosion. But when they moved the ground away and then they cleaned it off and sprayed it off, the stone is kind of like its original white color, what it was when it was first built. So again, that looks like 2 stories. Possibly it could even go down even more, because just the windows on the bottom are right at ground level. And who builds buildings with your windows right at ground level unless you're a department store? And those structures are ugly anyway. Okay, U.S. Capitol building. This here was done when George Bush was in office or early in Obama's presidency. I believe by the date on this, it looks like it's hard to tell, 2009 maybe, so it might have been Obama. But this is the Capitol building, and when they shaved that all away when they were doing that excavation, you see that there are more pillars. I don't know if I have it where you can see my mouse, but in the middle you can see the staircase that goes up to the pillars in the middle portion in front of the big dome. That's stairs right there. Below the stairs is this was all covered up. That's all pillars. That was all opened up. Okay. So question everything. All right. So that's all I have on the slideshow. And yeah, so just what I want to say before we close up the show for the day. Future shows are going to be longer. This very first one is just to kind of give you a taste of a lot of the things that we're going to talk about, and I might give you some tidbits. So we're going to still talk about some of these old world buildings, especially cathedrals, because the intricate artwork and everything's beautiful, just awesome. You'll see some of these old world buildings where they have statues, but the statues are missing heads and hands, and maybe even the feet, if the feet are showing. Why is that? Why are the heads and the feet and the hands missing? Um, we're going to talk about old world technology a little bit more. And again, that's why that video, homework, it's some little homework. And I guarantee you that once you get past that first couple of little short sections of that video, you're going to find that the continuing 4 hours and 30 minutes are going to be, it's like a good book. You aren't going to be able to walk away from it. So yeah, check that out. Okay, so we're going to talk about technology. We're going to talk about the civilizations, and we might even start getting a little bit on and bring it in on partial part of a show with like frequencies, healing frequencies, and also what was used, how they got their power, how they harness like electricity. Because I've found, and you'll see it in that video too, he has some stuff from the Chicago Fair, which was in I want to say 1863 or 1865, but it was the Chicago World's Fair. First, you'll see the buildings. They don't exist anymore. A little section of one of them exists, which is part of Soldier Field, where the Chicago Bears play. But the rest of it was all torn down. I think they just kept some of the pillars, maybe for the stadium, for the entry to the stadium. But we're gonna talk about why are they tearing these buildings down? Why is it that on a lot of these buildings you see scaffolding up on them? Um, they call it renovation, but I call it destruction. They're still getting rid of evidence. They know that we're waking up to stuff, and they're going to be like, oh, we got to get rid of this. They're going to see this, and they're going to know. So they're going to know that these were healing centers, power centers. Um, these are all places that were used for good, that was good for us. And then we're going to talk about how they actually harnessed the electricity, and also we're going to, with the frequencies, we're going to talk about some of the instruments and the bells and the organs and things like that. Those will all probably, the frequency stuff will include all of that in a video along with maybe some of the power, because I don't know if I'll have enough to cover one whole hour and a half show on that. Um, so let's see. We will probably get into, yeah, we're going to get into a lot of stuff. And just so you know, I have another um, show that I do Saturday at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. A lot of that show, that's called the Campfire. That's Stories of the Supernatural. A lot of that stuff is going to meld over and blend in with what we're talking about on this show. They might blend for a little bit and then they'll go back apart. But we're going to find some areas that might be similar, in that we can talk about them here and go more in depth into something that wouldn't quite be right for that show, but would get us deeper into some of the stuff on lifting the veil over here. So, again, hey, if everybody could just say a prayer for all of those innocent Ukrainian people that they are against the war. They do not like their president. They want him gone. They want to have they want to go back to being able to live their lives in a more free life. Okay, and like right now, a lot of people, it's so bad there that their bank accounts are monitored, and they're only allowed to be able to make so much money. The average Ukrainian person makes equivalent to between 500 and 600 American dollars a month, and these are skilled laborers. Some of them are like coal miners; they work in the mines. Some of them um, like are jewelers. Even some of the jewelers, the people that are actually working in the shops, they don't make much money. The owners of these places are filthy stinking rich, but the average Ukrainian worker makes between $500 and $600 a month. But honestly, the average is around 300. Um, my fiance's grandmother, who is retired, she's 89 years old, and she gets equivalent to $75 a month for her retirement. That's what she lives off of. And she always says, "Thank God we paid for our house." So these are good God-fearing people. They're Orthodox Christian, um, very devout, and they're just good people. I'm blessed to know a lot of Ukrainians. I have friends that are Ukrainian that from back in Wisconsin when I lived there. And I will tell you, I live in Texas now. I'm not wearing a cowboy hat yet. Anyway, I guess I will see everybody Saturday night at 8 o'clock on the campfire. Please come because uh, it makes everything go. It's a lot funner when I actually have more people that I can talk with and interact with um, out in the audience. So I think we probably only have one or two viewers tonight. Nobody's chatting it up. Nobody's saying like, "Hey, cool," like, whatever. But anyway, I I will. Well, that might be bad news coming. I might be getting off here at the right time. All right. God bless everybody. See you Saturday night at 8 o'clock on the campfire. Say a prayer for Ukraine and the Ukrainian people, and even the Russians too, because people are people. They're not all bad. It's their governments that are the problem. God bless. Y'all take care.